Hi, wonderful students. So today I wanted to go over how to take your analysis essay and create your critical evaluation essay from your analysis. So let's first take a look at what the critical evaluation is all about, okay? We know that when we started with the analysis essay, that we looked at a few things. We looked at literary devices, connotation, tone, the author's background, worldview, and types of evidence. So really all of those paragraphs constituted three different sections. We had language, we had credibility, and we had evidence, right? So what we did was essentially we looked at all of those concepts, we identified what those concepts were, and then we said, all right, why did the author choose this? How did he use it, and why did he use it in his essay? Like, what was the point? Now what we're going to do is we are going to actually take that same information and we're going to essentially start to decide for each of those sections, plus a couple more, was the word choice, was the background, is the worldview, was it effective, okay? So what that means is we are actually looking at every single paragraph and deciding, did he do a good job with this? Did it actually help to convince us of his argument? Or actually, did it take away from his argument? And we call that stating whether or not it made the claim weaker, meaning I didn't believe it as much because of this, or stronger, which means I did believe it because of this. Now, in an evaluation, that's essentially what you're doing. You are the judge and jury, and you are taking a look and saying, for each of your sections, did it help or hurt the claim? That's it. So what that means is we're going to be doing all of this information, okay? We're going to actually be going through all of this and being able to answer all of these questions by the end. And there is a video in your overview for the critical evaluation. But essentially, let's just make sure we know what it looks like and what you should be doing, the steps you should be taking in order to be really successful, right, on this critical evaluation. So if we take a look at the different parts of the evaluation, you can look at our thing link here. And remember, this is your visual of what it's going to actually physically look like, right, when you're done. So if yours isn't in Times New Roman, or you didn't indent the first line of a paragraph, or your references page doesn't look like this, it should by the end, right, play the matching game. All right, so let's take a look at the requirements. The first thing that you're going to need is an introduction. We know that, right? You need a body, which means that you have a summary. Same thing as your analysis, right? Nothing new. And then you're going to have your body paragraphs. And it says here to revise your paragraphs from your analysis essay by changing each claim and tie-in to include evaluation. So what does that mean? That means that you're adding on to the claim whether or not this particular concept made the claim weak or strong, okay? And then you're adding a few sentences into the end of the paragraph, right? And you're essentially going to just kind of talk about it, all right? How did this concept make it weaker or stronger? Why do you believe what you believe? Without saying I, okay? So essentially, that's the bottom line of what we're doing. Now, this is all going to look very familiar to you, but we are also taking the analysis and kind of expanding it out a little bit. So let's take a look at all the information that you're going to need. All right, language looks pretty much the same, right? Language, we have our first paragraph of literary devices and connotation and tone. Check mark. We're cool with that. We know that we're going to add a claim and a tie-in, and we're good to go. When I get to credibility, that's when things start to change a little bit, okay? So what we're looking at is we're looking, yes, at the author's background again, adding in that claim and the tie-in. But notice that we added on bias, okay, to the worldview paragraph. So you learned all about bias in week 6. So what that means is that you're going to just have a C-set format, okay? Just like you did for your connotation and tone paragraph. So kind of follow that area, format, and you should be good to go by adding in bias to your claim and then adding in an entire section of bias into this paragraph. We'll see what that looks like. Now, in the evidence, this looks a little blown up too. We already know that we've done one paragraph on types of evidence where you mention the top 3 and fully discussed the main kind of evidence that the author used. Now we're adding on 2 additional paragraphs, okay? So we are adding on a paragraph on ethos, pathos, and logos. You should probably mention all 3, but again, fully take the one that the author uses the most, okay, and fully discuss it, explaining how this makes the argument weaker or stronger. And then finally, your other new paragraph is going to be a paragraph on what you learned in week 6, which is accuracy, sufficiency, and relevancy. You must mention all 3, but again, you need to develop one. Now, depending on how you're using that second article, remember that article that you used in the database exploration assignment, right? Where you went into the SIRS issues researcher, you found an article, you answered lots of questions on it. Well, this is where that sentence and that evaluation helps to either support, okay, your ideas, or to kind of take away and say, listen, he didn't do such a great job. He should have done this, okay? So wherever you're using this secondary article, all right, whether it's to prove accuracy or to prove sufficiency or relevancy, whichever one you choose is the one that you should probably discuss the most, okay? Now, of course, your conclusion is going to be similar to the analysis, but it's going to change because, again, the goal of the essay has changed. So you are going to make sure that you're changing up your conclusion to reflect evaluation. Why did you, tell me overall, okay, overall, did the author prove his claim, yes or no? That's it. So when you add all of this together, all right, this was weak, this was strong, this was strong, this was strong, all of this was weak, okay? You can mix and match whatever you feel, whatever you feel is best. When you get to your conclusion, I want you to add it all up, and like a juror in a jury, you have all the evidence in front of you, and I want you to tell me, overall, did the author make his case? Was it weak or strong, and why? When you walk away from that article, did you believe it or did you not believe it based on the way that the author constructed his article, okay? So essentially, guys, that's what we're doing. We're taking the analysis and adding on. There is a nice little critical evaluation checklist here for you as well that shows you exactly what to change, okay? And to decide for each area if it's going to be weak or strong, all right? So what this tells you is what you need to change in each paragraph, what you need to add in each paragraph, okay? And what you need to change in your conclusion. So all that information is right there that we just went over, right here available to you. You can print this out. You can check it off to see, weak or strong for each of these, and then kind of make your evaluation at the end. It's a really nice tool. So what does this look like in practice? Let's really go through it piece by piece. Now, if I take here and I just kind of take out my sample critical evaluation, okay, and I put it side by side next to my analysis, okay, let's just scroll down and see what we've got. Look, same. We've changed our title, okay? Same, but now what we've done is I've actually kind of taken a look. Notice that this is a little bit longer, right? I've kind of changed up the introduction a little bit according to my instructor's feedback, and then I changed the thesis statement. So you can actually do this on your own. I would read each of these and then kind of see what's different about each, okay? I'm going to show you right away. So then when I look at the summary, again, it's a little bit longer because my instructor said, hey, this was not good enough. I needed a little bit more. So I made the adjustment, I revised it, and I added in my summary, okay? So again, over here is your analysis, over here is your evaluation. Now language, what I want you to notice is the following. Take a look at the claim sentences. In the analysis, you simply said, Skenazy uses the literary devices of alliteration and hyperbole to show how many careers exist beyond the familiar few introduced in school. That was it, right? Then you identified and you moved forward. Now take a look at language in the evaluation. Skenazy uses literary devices that strengthen her claim. Strengthen her claim is really what the evaluation is. So telling me that this concept makes it weaker or stronger is exactly what you need to add in to every single claim sentence. So we went from just identifying to now saying it strengthened her claim, such as alliteration and hyperbole, to show how many careers exist beyond the familiar few introduced in school. Exact same sentence added in the evaluation piece, okay? If we scroll down a little bit, again, we have the exact same thing. Of course, I changed it according to my instructor's feedback. But essentially, if we look here, okay, and we look at the tie-in here, notice that this tie-in in the evaluation is a little bit bigger, and it's a little bit more intense by adding in that evaluation piece. So instead of just saying how the exaggeration or how this kind of, how the author used the concept, take a look here. It says, these literary devices contribute to the article, so makes it stronger, right? By making the topic of career exploration seem broad and significant. In evaluation, these devices create a vivid effect for readers by helping them picture the problem as large scale and urgent rather than minor. Because the comparisons make the issue memorable and keep the reader focused on how many students are missing opportunities, the literary devices make Skenazy's message clearer and more persuasive. So because these literary devices are clearer and more persuasive, it strengthens her claim that schools should provide more real-world career exposure. So notice that we have changed to explain how it makes it weaker or stronger, okay? So we're going to be doing that all the way down, okay? Notice how these expand a little bit. And then we're going to be adding in information here, okay, to worldview. We're adding in the bias. Notice that we have a whole area right here talking about the worldview, right? And then talks about the bias. And then evidence, as you notice, we only have one paragraph here. We have 3 paragraphs here, okay? Adding in that secondary article that we found from the database exploration assignment. So visually, this is what it's going to end up looking like, okay? Now, let's take a look and let me just show you what I would do if I were you, okay? First, I'm going to read the feedback from your instructor and start to make changes and start to think about what I need to do. Then I'm going to copy my entire analysis essay and I'm going to essentially paste it right in here. Look at that. Same exact essay, okay? Now I'm going to change the title because we're no longer doing analysis, we're doing evaluation. So this is going to be our first change, okay? Again, we're also looking at all of your instructor's feedback and kind of making those revisions as you go along, okay? But essentially, this is what you need. If I look here in the checklist, I need to change my thesis. All right. So if I look right here in my introduction, I know I'm going to highlight everything that I need. I'm going to change my thesis, all right, to make sure that it's an evaluation. So I'm going to write change to evaluation formula. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at my checklist again, and I'm going to say, all right, in my language section, I have 2 paragraphs. I've got literary devices and connotation and tone. Cool, I'm good. But I have to change my claim and my tie-in. So right here, I'm going to highlight it, and I'm going to say change, add, weak, or strong. Okay, got it? Then I'm going to highlight my tie-in, and I'm going to simply put change, or so we'll do change or add explanation of weak or strong. Okay, so we're adding that evaluation in here. It's going to be a little bit longer now. Okay, again, I'm going to do the exact same thing now for every single paragraph. So here, I'm going to add to the claim, and I'm going to add to the tie-in. Okay, so I've got a tie-in here. I'm going to highlight it. I'm going to say I need to change right here. All right? Now, language is pretty simple because we're not doing a lot of wacky stuff. Okay? We're really not doing any other wacky stuff here until we get to worldview. So let me show you how to change your analysis into worldview and bias. Okay. Now, our checklist says the background, we need to change the claim and the tie-in. So let's do this again. I've got to change. So I'm gonna go here to my credibility. Here's my background. Here we go. I'm going to add change. And I'm going to also highlight my tie-in. Okay. I'm going to actually kind of add that here. Okay, because we kind of just ended and we were like, all right, that's cool. Now I want to know whether or not the background actually makes the author a little bit more credible or not. All right. Now here's the part that's going to be a little bit different. In the worldview section, I'm going to add bias, and I'm going to add weak or strong. Okay? So that by the time I'm done, it's going to look like this. Oops, that was a lot. It's going to be like this. Skenesi's worldview and the bias it creates ultimately make her claim stronger because they give her argument a clear and consistent focus. Okay? So I've added in bias and I've added in weak or strong. Okay, so that's what it's going to look like. Then, of course, right before I get into this tie-in, right here, I'm going to add a whole set on bias. All right, so I'm going to say something like, additionally, the author's bias adds to her strength or adds to her weakness, whatever it is. Okay? I'm actually going to make this a different color so you can see it. And then here, again, I need to change or add an explanation of weak or strong to the tie-in right here. Okay? Now, bear with me. We're going to keep going. Evidence, the same thing we have. So let's take a look at our checklist. In evidence, I've got a lot going on here. So I need types of evidence. I need to change the claim and the tie-in. I already have that. I need to add in a paragraph on ethos, pathos, and logos. And I need to add in accurate, sufficient, and relevant with my SIRS article in there. All right. So let's go down here. We know that all that we need to do for the first one is just take a look at the claim. Remember, we're just going to change the claim. And then we're going to change the tie-in. So we've got the same thing going on here. Oops. It actually starts here. Okay, so this needs to change. All right. And then I'm just going to simply highlight, add paragraph on ethos, pathos, logos. Add paragraph on accurate, sufficient, and relevant. Use second article in C. Hold on, we'll do C set. And add second article. Okay. So essentially what that means is you're going to have a whole paragraph in C set format on accurate, sufficient, relevant, and make sure that you, on that second set, you're just kind of putting in that secondary article. You can actually take a look at the critical evaluation sample to see how that happens, okay? So this person has discussed all the information that we need, and then right here, added in, okay, that secondary article. You guys, this is all that you need. That's all that you need right here. Is just that information, that little blurb, to just kind of compare and explain a little bit more about accuracy, sufficiency, or relevancy. It's really up to you how you want to use it, but notice that I'm not doing a whole paragraph on that second article. It's going right here in this part of your essay, okay? And then, of course, I need to change the whole conclusion, right? And I'm going to change and revise to reflect overall evaluation, okay? Answer the question, overall, did the author convince you? Is the claim overall weak or strong, and why? Okay? So essentially, this is what we're looking at when we go from, this is your analysis, to make it into evaluation, all right? What I would highly recommend doing is, again, putting them side by side, even on the computer screen like I just did, to see how the different areas change. Maybe annotate or highlight your own samples to make sure that they, you can see where things are. But essentially, guys, this is it. This is how you want to change everything. And these are the areas that you're going to be working on, all right? Now, of course, you're going to need to add in, right, your second article. So somewhere in here, I'll just kind of throw it in there. Highlight, add in second article from database exploration assignment. Okay, so don't forget to do that as well. That's going to be important, all right? So you guys, that's it. That is what it looks like. That's what I would do. Really explaining how to go from analysis to evaluation, where specifically you need to make the changes and additions. I know this video is really long, but again, this is an online class and we don't get to see each other. And so, if we were in class, I would actually have you highlight your own paper and add these things in as you go. But as this is an online class, all that we can kind of work on is, and me trying to explain to you exactly what it's going to look like. So again, what I would do, look at both of the samples, make sure that you read over the overview page, okay? Make sure that you take a look at this information here. I'm going to post it for you so that you're all set and ready to go. And essentially, guys, I really, really hope that you do a good job. Don't forget to look at my comments from your feedback from analysis and make those changes as well, right? We're still revising. with word choice, transition words, revision, and editing strategies. So really kind of take a look, see how you can improve, and let's make part 1, your analysis, the best part 2 evaluation that you can possibly have. I know that you can do this, guys, and I am so excited to see what you can come up with. Please reach out to me should you need anything. I am 100% here from you, or here for you, and ready to hear from you. I just wish you the best of luck, everybody. Happy writing.